Hello, hello.
Hi.
I just give me a sec. Okay, so this week we plan to go through this one, the P2P function. So we will take around 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes to go through the P2P part. And then if you have any question after that, you can feel free to ask it. So let's get started because I think you may have lots of questions today. So I will just save time on this part. I will try to go through all the demo code. I already have the code in my hand, so I can show you directly. So let's do it. Can you see my VLab?
Yep.
Okay, so
Can I just ask a quick question first?
Yes, sure.
Will we need to use multi-threading on the client side to handle the sending and receiving of UDP?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to use it.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So if you are not like have no idea how to do it, you can go through the recording from last week. We have the recording on the GitHub link. I will send you there so you can have a check of the recording from last week. We talked about it last week. Yes, I think the consultation for this week is kind of the last one because next week we will still have the consultation, but we don't have enough time. It should be in Thursday and Friday. So next week we'll just go through how to do the submission and how to do the test before you do the submission. So I reckon like you should be aware of that. We don't have much time from now, but it's still have enough time. Like if you haven't done anything, you still have enough time to do it. So don't worry about it. I have sent you the link of the GitHub link. We have 3 recording already, so you can go through all of them if you didn't start it yet. So this week we will just go through the sender and receiver for the UDP. So I will show you how it works. I just had a test of it. Can see. So firstly, I run my receiver. So it's just Python 3 with UDP receiver. So, and then I will try to send a file. Let me delete this one. I will try to send a file from the sender to the receiver. So we have a file called python.png. Let me open this PNG for you. You can see the Python PNG is like this. So we are trying to send this PNG file from the sender to the receiver side. As you can see here, in the receiver folder, we don't have anything beside this script. So let's try to run the script. Just Python 3 UDP sender and the IP address. And I didn't specify the port number because the port number is 5000. I set it as a fixed value, but it should not be a problem for you. And with the python.png, the file name, I just type send, and it will try to send lots of packets, then combine to one picture. You can see the file download, receive file, and we can try to open this one. Yeah, you can see the picture is complete. So, and we can also try to send the txt file, see if it's working or not. This test.txt have only 2 rows, A and BBB, and let's try it. So we'll try to send the test txt. Okay, it seems we only send one packet, and the receiver is not working, right? So we need to run it again and try to send it. Okay, so you can see we received this file. Let's go to the receiver side. You can see we do have this file. So let's have a check. What do we have in the txt? Yes, we do have the content, right? So you can see this sender and receiver can receive like a txt or png file, whatever format you want to send, and it does the work. So let's go through the code right now so you can see what do we have inside. Let's have a look of the receiver first. EP receiver. So this is the receiver, and this is the sender. As you can see, it's pretty easy, right? Just only a few rows. And here we maybe we just have a look of the receiver first because it's the server side. So this one is the address and the port number, and this one is the initialization of the socket. You have already done it in the client side. So, but just be aware of that. This one is the UDP. So I think you already have the TCP one in your client side, isn't it? So you need to create another socket with the UDP. So you will have two socket objects in your client.py. Just be aware of that. This one is the UDP one, not the TCP one. And you need to bind. You need to bind the UDP address and the port number. And in the in our app implementation, we need to upload the port number to the server side, right? So we need to send this port number when you log into the server side. And then the buffer size is 1024. You can feel free to change it to a larger one, but 1024 should be enough. And so the buffer size means at each packet we will receive at most this much. So we may need to combine lots of packets into one file. So you can see that's the reason why we have a while loop in here. We will keep receiving the small packets, which is the 1024 bytes, and combine them together into a larger one. And you can see that this simple protocol is like this. So the first step is to receive, right? Receive, what is this thing? Basically, you can have a look of the left-hand side. So we firstly send this stuff into the server side, which is the file name. Receive the file name. And so why do we need to receive the file name? Because we want to open the file name and write it, right? So because we want to save it as a file, then we have to know the file name. So that's the reason why we send the file name first. And the second step, once we get a file name, then we can start to write. So the second step is write the contents. Yes. Content into the file. So that's the second step. The first step is to receive the file name because we need to have the file name to write the file. Otherwise, we don't know like what's the name of the file should we write. And the second step, we need to write all the data, all the content inside the file to that file. So you can see we do have a while loop. So we will keep receiving and then we use a trial and accept. So we will keep listening on the client side, the sender side, and we will write the content we have. And then we will receive from the stuff again. But this one, like you can change the format about this part. I think this one is not the optimal one, but it is working right now. So I guess you can try to like improve it on the performance. So there are a few couple parts that may have bugs. For example, this one, the F and S. So we need to close the file after we done it, right? So what if we have some error between this part and so we cannot close it properly? That may cause a problem on your server side or client side. So you may need to be aware of that. But these two simple code can just work right now. So maybe just for your reference, I just put a very simple version for that. You can, as you can see, the protocol of this one is pretty easy. So just two steps. The first step is to send the file name. The second step is to send the file content. So yeah, you can just have a check of the sender side on the left-hand side. So in here we send the file name. Then next one we send the file content. Read file and yep, and then we send the file while data. While we do have data, then we send to just keep sending packet by packet. So is that okay? So every time we yeah, so I think that's it. So in here, just to save time, I use a timeout as the end of it. So maybe in your protocol, you can use other methods to recognize where is the end of the like file sending. You can like send a symbol to identify this transmission has been completed, or use other method, because the timeout is not a good idea. But in here, it's just so easy to use it, so I just use it. So you can like take a screenshot about this part. I'm not going to upload this code to the GitHub link, but if you want, you can take a screenshot and just type the code. It's just a few rows. How to make UDP reliable is really a tough question for me. So as you can see here, there's no reliable transmission at this point, right? So if you want to do this, the first easiest implementation is to judge, like if you want to make sure you do have the RDP, you can do what is the length, right? You can confirm the length of the file. For example, at the end of it or at the beginning of it, you can try to send the length of this file so you can do the verification. So that's the first idea if you want to do the reliable data transmission. the first idea is use the length. So you can just simply check what is the length of it. If you like in the server side, if you don't have the like the same length, maybe you need to send it again, right? Only checksum will guarantee the reliability. No, that's not enough. But I think for our assignment, this could be enough, right? Because you don't know like if you have any error in one of the packets, because it's pretty normal that you have some error bytes error on the transmission. But in this assignment, of course, you can check the bytes by bytes, but it may consume more time. And you can use other function like to do the verification, like you can use the hash to like do some ND file calculation to make sure you do have the same file. That will be like very smart. But if you can do it, if you have time to do it, that will be great. But if you don't have time, just you can simply check the length. But like if you don't have any time to do this part, I think it's still okay. So just do the transmission part and don't worry about too much about the RDD. I think the majority of the marks will distribute it on the UDP transmission instead of the packet loss. Yeah, to do the hash, you can use the MD5 hash. Like it's pretty easy. You can just check how to do the. Let me just type the code. I think it is digest or something. I think you need to use some library like import like hash library something in hash library, and it should be something like hash library ND5, something like this. So for this assignment, we need 4 files. There are clients and no. So in here, why do I have 2 separated file? Because I just want to show you how does this work without any other code. So your task is to merge this code. Obviously, the sender side and the receiver side should both in your client.py, right? So you need to put these 2 code into one file into your client.py. So that's a challenge, but it's not really hard, right? Yes, specification says we need to specify this number. In here, I just specify as 9999. So you need to read the user input, which can specify an UDP port number for that when we run it. So you may need to change this part. And let me open my web browser. Let's go to this one, this one, this one. Okay, just have a quick look from last week. This one, we talk about the Yeah. Um, maybe I need to find this file so we can do some. I can show you how to put it into the client side because you already have the code. So now the question is how to put these two part of code into the client.py, right? Let me think. If you have any question, just feel free to ask it. For the sender, can you please quickly explain if send to part? What does this check do? For the senders, if, okay. So we come to here. We come to this one first. So we send the file name at first. Send the file name. And in the receiver side, this part will receive the file name from the sender. And then the second part, we send the file content. So you can see we open the file first. And then we use the read function of the file to read the content from the file one by one. And then while we have the data, which means while we can still read from the file, and then we will do this function first. So we will send this data into this IP address and the port number, which is the receiver side, right? So in here, you can see we will receive the content at this part. We will receive it in here, and we will print sending. So what is the if in here? So you can try it by yourself, like delete this if. It will return a true or false. So it's a socket.send2. It's pretty easy to just do it by yourself. You can just print it, or you can just check it online. You can send2 function for Python sockets. This is for the UDP. You can say this method. We can just go to the return value, return the number of bytes sent. You can see it's not true or false, but it will return the number of the bytes sent. So if we can send any bytes to here, then we will print sending. You can just change this part. You can change this part to like send bytes equal to s dot send to data avr, something like this. So if we have send bytes, so this is something like this. So I didn't change anything, right? I just save it into a variable and put it into the if bracket. So in this point, you may think it's easier to understand. It's just like if this one larger than 0, right? This is equivalent. So if the code will work if even I delete this part. Again, we can just print it here, sending a packet size equal to like this. Okay, so let me run it again and see how it works. Maybe delete the receiver side file. Okay. Okay, so we run the receiver. And then we Python 3 group UDP sender, then the text file. Oh, sorry, made a mistake. So I need to add the f string. Like this. Okay, let's try to do it again with the PNG python.png. So you can see we send lots of packets. 120.120.768. So that's how it works. Send to probably return true if it could send the data. Look at the docs. Yeah. Thanks for explaining this. If the receiver did not get a name, we need to resend or use TCP to send the file name. So in the transmission of this part, like the connection between two clients should be the UDP connection. So do not try to establish any TCP connection between the client. Yeah, it's a bit tricky if you use TCP. Like for the file transmission, always use the UDP, including the name of it. Otherwise, you may lose some of the point. Do we need to modify the multi-thread path for the UDP P2P implementation? I think so. Feel quite confused about the multi-thread part. Could you explain multi-thread part a little more in details? Yes, I'm going to do it. Just give me a sec. Yeah, for the UDP transmission, which is the P2P sending, if you don't have time, just consider we only have two clients. So just try to send from client 1 to client 2, and then from client 2 to client 1. Just consider in this case, if you don't have enough time. If you already done it, you can try to have 3 or more clients sending with each other. Give me a sec. I am finding my file. Let's use this one to draw a new one. Then. Okay, so this is the client and server. So is it clear? Like, can you see this graph clear?
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, that's okay. So client 1 and 2 in here, you may be a little bit confused. Like, how can we add this two code into like the client.py? So do not put any of the UDP code in the server side because we don't need to send it, right? We need to do in this way, client 1 to client 2 directly, but we may need to go through this server. Do you know what's the reason? Once we want to establish the P2P, we may fetch some information from the client because if they want to establish this UDP connection. So what do we need in here? We need to use the IP address and the port number, right? So what's the port number do we need is in here. Just let me so you need to tell the server what is your UDP port, which is already done in another part, right? In the log part. So you need to fetch this value for the client from the server side. Otherwise, they cannot establish the connection. So that's why I lose the diagram again. Let me open it. Open the exist again. So we have to put this two part of the code into the client.py. So how can you do it? What is the main thread in your code right now? I reckon it's a while true loop, right? So for the client, so now we only look at the client. This is the client.py. So what do you have inside? You should have a while loop, while true, like user input equal to input, type your command, right? You must have this one in your client.py. Should be in something like this. Then you like do action of user according to the user input. So beside this part, we can call this one the main thread. So we need to create a subthread which can handle the UDP function. You may need to have another thread called subthread. Subthread 1. It's still a while true loop. So what do we need to do here? Listen from other clients, right? So we need to have this one. We need to listen from other clients. So this is basically a server side. So this is a TCP, no, it's UDP server, right? No, the subthread is not inside the main thread. So before you run the main thread, before you enter the while true loop, you need to run the subthread before it. So you have like couple threads running together. So you make sure you run the subthread before you do the main thread. Otherwise, you have no time to run the subthread. Like, if you have no idea how to do this part, don't worry about this function first, right? So change this part to, so print hello, try to print hello at the background for your client, and we can time.sleep 1 second. So every 1 second, you can print a hello in your terminal of the client side. Can you try to do this one first? Then you can replace the function of print hello to listen from other clients. So this listen from other clients is basically this part. So we are listening. Oh, sorry, this one is sender. I'm sorry. This one is receiver. This one is the server side. So the code from so okay. So that's the fundamentals of this one. Yeah, it's okay. So this one is the first substrate. So what other substrate can you imagine? So this one, this server can hand the main function of this one is to handle incoming EDP connection, right? Read the file. You can have other substrate, but like this one is just the compulsory one. But for the other substrate, you can print the message from the other side. But I reckon you can do in here to action like print incoming message from server. So this is okay. Don't worry about the other substrate. I think these two should be enough. I just don't want to make it very complicated. So these two while true is in parallel. You have to run it together. So how can you do that? So if you feel a bit confused about this part, try to write a simple program. Learn threading while true loop. So this one you can have the first one, like you can print this is main time.slip and print delete and this is the done. Try to write a threading like this. Should be pretty easy. Just search online. Lots of example code for this kind of stuff. I just delete this one. Delete this one. So if you find it hard to do it, just do this one first. Try to write a program that can print these two messages simultaneously. So you may think, oh, this is useless, but how about like you change the time? Like for example, this message you can print every second. This one like every 5 seconds. So this one is just a example code that can help you to write the client API. Of course, you can use the if command, but in this case, it's better to use substrate. Of course, if you want, you can still use if command do them together, it's okay, but it's pretty hard, I would say. You need to handle a lot of stuff. So I still recommend you to use the subthread. So it is possible to not use the subthread, but I reckon it's too complicated to write the code and make it work. Yeah, how to show a little demo. So it's just pretty easy, like threading. You confused? Like threading, sorry, Python 3. Thread-based. So this is the document. So scroll down, see if we can find some examples. This is not. Threading dot thread. Threading dot thread. Okay, so we will do a demo for this code. So I hope you can understand this one. So let's try to do this one anyway. But if you have any other question, feel free to ask. Because I think this file is pretty easy to do. You should be able to do it by yourself. Spider. Let me. How can I do this code? Maybe on the spider. So we define two functions first. Define two functions first, like print. Print hello, and we don't have any parameters, and then we just simply print hello in here, and we need to from threading import thread and import time. Okay, so in here time dot slip, and then we create another one, print and the time is 2, so we wait for 2 seconds. So how can we ask them to run in parallel? So while true, and while true. Okay, so in here we want to run them. So how can we do like in parallel? So you may print hello and print word. So this one will not work, right? Because if we run it like this, it will go to this function first, and we will stuck inside the true loop, in the while true loop, and we cannot go to here. So we can run it and see how it goes. I think it's this one. Okay, so you can see we can only print hello in here, but how can you do it? Like without threading, we cannot run this one. So what should we do to run this one and this one all together? So we need to create a thread. Don't worry if you don't know how to do it. Just go through here. It's pretty easy. Just p equal to this one, right? So we just copy this one. Just go through the document. Take 10 minutes to do it. And yeah, we just copy some code. P equals to thread. We create a thread of the print word, the argument. We don't need any kind of argument. So it's okay. We just give it an empty tuple. And then we start this thread, and then we start to print the hello. So firstly, we start the thread, subthread of print word. So it should be print word, right? And then we start the print hello here. And let's see how it goes. You can see it is running simultaneously. Is that okay? So that's how this works. So in here, we just want to change this one to the main thread. We define the main. So this one is sub thread, like UDP server, like this. So we just change this into different file, a different name. And if you want to put some arguments, just do it here. For example, here, the interval equal to 1 equal to 2. But if we have the interval, then we can pass some parameters about the interval here. Usually it's wait for 2 seconds, but we can pass, let's say 10 seconds. And let's do it. Okay, so hello, 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 hello. Oh, doesn't work. A bit awkward. So try to figure this out by yourself. How to pass the parameters? It should be something like this. I can delete this one and see if it's working or not. Green hello is not defined. Yeah. Okay. Obviously, this one is not working properly. Some error in this part. So try to fix this one. So usually it's a tuple, something like this.
Is there meant to be a comma in the
Sorry?
arguments? Is there meant to be a comma in the arguments?
Comma. This one?
Yeah,
You means I need to delete this one?
maybe.
Yeah. Let's try. No.
Yeah.
See, yeah, I remember there are some like tricky stuff in this part, but I don't really remember like how exactly this works. So maybe it takes some time to fix it. Ah, yeah, you can see the background is still running. So maybe it's the console problem. You can see I stopped the program already, and it's still running at the background. Yeah, but it should be something like this. But don't worry too much about it. So that's the main structure of it. So in the client.py, we put the substrate with the server code. And you can put the standard code, which is this part, the standard code, put it in the main thread. It's okay. Put it inside the do action. So once we want to do the P2P command, then we come to this part. We can call a function or something like that. We just connect to the server side and send the names and the contents. And you can also do some verification if you want. In when will next week's consultation be? The same time, the Thursday. But Friday, we plan to move to the 10 a.m. as we have a deadline at 12. But next week, we don't have much time to do all these kind of things. So I recommend you to do it right now. The next week, we just come to have here to have a double check before the submission. Like on Thursday, we can go through some test case. I will give you some test case to go through function by function. I will ask you to test your program in this way. So you can go through them. If you find some small error, you can just fix it. Yes, so I know there are lots of like small case that you may worry about, but just do not think too much because all you need to do is just follow the specification at the end of it. Just go to the specification and scroll down to the bottom. Can you see that? This one from the page 17 and 16 actually. So from here, the sample interaction, just go through all the content in here. Just test your server and client in this way. Make sure you have exactly the same output. Does this substrate pseudocode works for multiple clients sending files to one receiver at the same time? No, it doesn't. So be aware of this. We can only receive one code at this point. So this one is just a simplest version of that. You may want to do some change for multi-client. As you can see here, you really need to do something at this part to make sure it will handle like from different clients at the same time. So you can do something like here. So I recommend to look at the code for the server is in here. So you can just mimic the end of the server code like this. We can have this one. It's pretty long, but I just put it here. Okay. You can try to replace this part in here. So we will listen and this, and we will get the address like this, and then we start. So you can see we can replace this kind of code inside the subthread 1. So the subthread 1, so that's the reason I put a 1 here, right? And this subthread 1 can create subthread 2, 3, and 4 to handle all the incoming transmission from the UDP client, just like the server. But yeah, in my point of view, we will not test a lot of clients. So I didn't mention this part, but if you have time to do it, that would be great.
Hello, Ray.
Yes.
Have you finished your today's demo? I'd like to ask something about the last week's contents.
Yeah, sure. Let me just check if we have any question on the chat. If we try to RDT, if we automatically override, do we need to delete the incorrect bytes before resending? Really depends on your implementation. So if you want to do the RDT, depends on your protocol. So you can do it both ways, okay? So if you want, you can show your like protocol so we can have a look. Yeah, just I will stop the sharing. If you want to take a screenshot, you can do it right now. But I will try to upload this picture into the GitHub later. But if you want to do a screenshot, you can do it right now. And I'm about to close my share. Just let me allow this share screen. Yeah, you can. Do you have any question like the question about your code or something? You can share your screen if you want.
Yeah, I like to share my screen.
Yeah, okay. So I will stop. Stop. You can do it right now. Do we need to consider the space in the username or password by typing mistake? Yes, you'd better consider this one. And this symbol in the file, you should also be aware of that. In the credential.txt, we may contain an empty line at the end of it. Make sure you do not crash your client. Well, it shouldn't matter in the credentials. Yeah, that's true. So I don't worry too much about the space because we use the space to divide the username and password. But just be aware of that, the empty line at the end of it. Yes, this one will be recorded and uploaded by the end of today. Yes, I can see your code right now.
Okay, is it my turn?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So about last week's contents, we have demonstrated some of the commands, but I'd like to know what the outcome is. So I'll show you the outcome I got and can double check that it is the expected outcome.
Yeah.
So we have the command to test the EDG.
Yes.
And the data narration has been done. So so right now the server and the client are both located on my own computer, right? So
but
the file.
Just give me a sec. So in my point of view, the EDG will not ask you to send the data to the server side, isn't it? So just let me just quick look over it. I remember we don't need to upload it until we issue the EED command, isn't it?
Not sure.
Yes,
Yeah,
you can scroll down to, you can see the table. Just the right hand side at the end of it at the table. Yes, the EDG 100, that command. You can, yeah, you can see in the server side, in the central server terminal, there is no output, right? In the client terminal, we print data generation completed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see the server side does not show anything.
Because there is no call. Oh, yeah. So are you saying that I should eliminate this line, but only leave this line in the client side?
Yes. So you are trying to send to the server side, right? So you don't need to. This is the function of EED, right?
Yeah,
so if you done it in EDG, so what do you do in EED?
That's another question I will ask.
Okay. So
yeah,
just
so this one.
Just go through this one. Like, what do we need to do in this one?
Yeah. So, is this the outcome you expect? Like there is one file generated in our local computer or local directory.
Yeah, we need to have this kind of stuff. Just before you check it, you may need to have a check of the specification. Like, I think we do upload some example this kind of format into the link, into the assignment resources.
Yeah, websites.
Yeah, you can check it one by one. Just make sure you follow the format, including all the log files?
Yeah, so I'm just curious about the server and the client, because in my opinion, the server should be like you connected to the internet, right? And this file should be generated on the internet, but this assignment does not require to do so, right? It's just a file generated in our local computer.
So we will
Okay.
test the code in the VLab because we only have one VLab account, right? Probably we will test in the same VLab environment, which means we will use it in this IP address. So firstly, test your server and client with this IP address. And if possible, also test on this one. So it's on the public IP address. If you have the server, like you do have your own server, cloud server, you can test it. But if you don't, just try the 127 IP address.
Sorry, what's that public server?
Yes.
That,
So for
I'm
example,
asking.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm asking. So, except for the 127 server, will you provide another server connected to the internet and our client send the file, and the file will exist on the internet? Is that what you are saying?
Yeah, I mean, we could do this because we are saying that this like is the server and client. It should be like implement in different computer, but usually we test it on 127.0.0.1, which is the local host. So we run all the clients in one computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you have time, also check the public IP address. Like if your server can run in another computer and your client can still connect it to it.
Is there a specific function which should be implemented to achieve that
No,
effect?
no, we don't need to do any kind of coding, but just the addressing. So basically, you don't need to change your code, but yeah, just change the IP address. So don't worry too much
Okay.
about this part. Usually, we will test all of the function in the local host.
Okay.
So make sure it will work on the local host first.
Yes, sure. Yeah, this question has been addressed, and I'd like to ask more about the UED. Like last week, you demonstrated JSON approach, right? But I'm not sure that the file object. So what kind of edge data should we send? Is that just a string in the JSON format, or is that an object sent to the server, like file object?
So is there any problem with that, like for the JSON?
Yeah. My question is, what is the type of the data we send to the server? Is
What
the
type?
type?
Okay.
Yeah, is the type of file object, or is the type just a string in this format?
Okay, so this is the log message, right? So in the server side, we need to have this kind of log, which is the txt file. So it doesn't really matter what kind of message. If you want to make this message in the client side and then send it to the server side, it's okay. And you can send a string or send a JSON like format, it's okay. But to send through the through the TCP connection, you have to send a byte-like string. So you can only send bytes between the server side and between the server and client. So it doesn't really matter how you send it. You can like send it via the plain text and use the encode function to transform the string into bytes. It's okay. And you can also use the JSON library, right? JSON library, you can write a dictionary, and then you can use the JSON load or dumps. I don't remember. I have shown you last week, right? 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use the JSON library to transform the dictionary into a string, and then we transform the string to bytes. We need to send the bytes, right? We cannot send any other type of stuff between the TCP connection.
Yes.
Yeah, it will always
So
be bytes.
so the type formats are required to be byte string. But
Yeah, it's
why
bytes.
do we need but why do we need JSON dumps to convert a dictionary to string?
Yes, you can do it by yourself, like to do the conversion. Like
I mean, why do we need
the JSON one?
Yeah, why do we need JSON dumps to convert dictionary to string?
Yes, so otherwise, how can you send it?
I just send a string and I converted it to byte string. But why do you mention that we can convert it dictionary to string?
Yes, so I mentioned about the data structure on this protocol. So if you are not using dictionary or JSON, it's okay. But like as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, if we have lots of commands, it's better to use dictionary or use JSON like data to communicate, because it will be easier for the servers and the client to understand each other. But if you are just using the plain text, it's still okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really
Okay.
matter. So if you feel comfortable with the plain text, it's okay. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You can just simply send this string from the client side to the server side to save the time. But
okay.
But we are using the JSON because we want to just make it clear and have less bug. But it doesn't mean it's not good to use plain text. We can like have very good outcome with the plain text.
Okay. So generally, it's just a byte string, not a object.
Yes, we cannot send the object through the TCP connection.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just one last question, because we still have lots of students. So if you want, you can wait until they don't have any question.
Yeah, sure. It's the only last question. Thank you. I'm sorry. So about this one, the terminal should shut down at this point. So does that mean the terminal terminates, or it pause for some time?
Sorry, what's that? The
I mean,
shutdown?
what is the effect that the terminal shut down at this point?
Yeah, you just run the exit command in the terminal. Just exit the program.
So the client will be disconnected.
Yes. Yes.
I see.
Yeah, I can see we have the same question on the chat, right? So do we need to exit? Yes, we need to exit, as we mentioned in the specification. So once we block the user, we just disconnect it. We close the socket connection and ask the client to disconnect it.
So like the client side will be terminated, and
yes,
and it should start again with Python 3 server client.py like that.
Yeah, you need to close the socket to avoid further question, to avoid further problem with the server side. Just remember to close the socket.
I mean, if it is not, if the login files and the client is just look like the program terminates and you need to retype Python 3.
Yes, true.
I got it. Yes, thanks so much for your time. And thanks so much for other slides. That's all my question.
Okay, no problem. Okay, let
Yeah.
me check. We have another question. From the, I've noticed some of the uploading to file to servers for UED. If my data amount is too big, the file won't upload. Do I just increase the IECV amount? Yes, the easiest way is to change your buffer size, like I did in this side. Let me share mine. So the easiest way is change the buffer size, right? 1024. You can change the buffer size to a larger number, but this one is the UDP sending, but the idea is the same, right? So you have this kind of buffer size. You can try to increase it, but what if we test a very huge number? I'm not sure, but what if we test a very large number and the buffer size is not enough? So you need to have this kind of mechanism to make sure you can receive everything. So you need to have a while true loop or something. You need to make sure you have got every single stuff from the client side. Or yeah, if you don't want to do this, it's okay. You can just post the question on the forum. You can ask, like, can you tell me what is the maximum what is that, the number we may test on that command? So if, for example, if we only will test from 1 to 100, then you can just make sure it will work with 100. Otherwise, you need to have this method to avoid the problem. This is because your buffer size is too small or not enough to send a single file. But anyway, you need to handle the UDP command, isn't it? So you just use the same method if you have already done the UDP. And from the assignment document, blocking the user for 10 seconds after, what does the even from the different IP mean? Okay, so for example, I am trying to log in with this client. Let me show you. So you're asking about the blocking, right? Okay, so we can try to TCP server, and TCP Python 3 TCP clients. For example, this one is not a complete version, so it could be a little bit weird. Type the command like username admin ASD, and this is the first file, and admin ASD. This is the second file, login, and then try to log in again, doesn't work. So I failed 3 times. At this time, I need to close my program. So I didn't close it here, which is wrong. So you need to exit. And in the server side, you need to block the client at this time. So the terminal should be closed. And I can run the client again. So if it's within 10 seconds and I try to log in again, I try to log into admin, it should set I have been already blocked at this point, right? Because I failed 3 times already, and I cannot connect to the server again. And at this time, even with the different terminal, like you open a new terminal and run the client Python TCP client again, you can still log into the admin user. So no matter which terminal are you using or which IP address are you using, you cannot be logging to the admin right now because it has been blocked. So no matter which terminal are you using to log into the same admin user, you cannot log in, right? Because it already blocked. And yeah, so in this part, actually we want to mention about different IP address. Like you have 2 computers connected to the server, but just don't worry too much as we will only test it on the VLab environment. So just try to open 2 different terminal or 3 different terminal and try to log into one username. And if you fail 3 times, then we block it. And you cannot log in with different terminal with the same username. Okay, I edited the sample code from the website, but for some reason, only the last client connected to the server can work. Do you know what is the reason? I am not pretty sure because this one can work and my code is exactly the same with the demo code. So if you want, maybe you can have a look what is my code and you can compare with your code, I guess. So this is the client, TCP client. You can take a screenshot for the client and I will open the server. So this is the server. It's a bit long, but I think the only problem is here. So while true loop, I didn't touch anything at the end of it, but I'm not pretty sure which part is not correct for you, but is it because of this? But it should work. So in my client and server, it is working properly. Maybe you can try my code and see what's wrong with it. So this code, it is in the GitHub link already. So you can go through the recording from week 5. I have already done this part in week 5, and we do have a recording for these 2 parts of code. You can see how I code the whole stuff. I think someone else had a bug on the forum. It was something to do with their function. Do you have a link or do you remember any part of the title? Yeah, thanks, Sunny. Simultaneous logging. Yes, I think we may not test it. If we mention it on the specification, we will test it. Otherwise, we will not test it. You can try to have a look of the specification. If we do mention this one, like if they cannot allow us to do this logging, you just reject it. Otherwise, it's okay. Should they in different folder? I think so. So try to have them in separate folder. Current, I have a subdirectory for other files. Yes. Do I need to change my code so they generate in the same directory as this here? Can I simply just mention it? Yeah, so usually we put them in 2 different folders. So try, because we need to have a report, right? So you can draw a picture or something, draw the structure of the TCP client and server. How does this work? Just mention this one in your report, like how to run your server. Do we need to put it in separate folder, or we can just simply put it together? Regarding the timestamp, it should be sent. It should be send command time or receive command time. I think it's okay. Yeah, the delay is like really small as we test it on the local host. I think it's okay. Yeah, and we cannot judge you, like you are using a different timestamp as long as you are using one of them. Yeah, so we will provide the log files, but just in case your program crashed when we test it, because you will never know how other users use your program, right? So make sure you can reset all the log file. If you restart it, or even the server crashed, you can reset before you run it. Otherwise, it will cause lots of trouble. I didn't realize that I didn't open my microphone. The timestamp, we will not judge too much about the send or receive time because they are quite similar. And reset the log files. Yes, we need to. You can refer to the folder in the assignment part. You can see we have already done the. We have shown you how the log file looks like. So make sure every time you restart the server and client, maybe the server only, you will reset the log file. So for example, what if your server crashed? Make sure you reset everything before you crash or after you restart it. Yes, so it's easier to reset if you already write it in your server side. It will be easier for us too. Yes, because it's a server and client. The auto test will be a bit hard to judge as some of the students may not follow the specification on the output. So we will mostly mark your assignment by our hand. But sometimes like we will run some easy command while the scripts. But we will judge your output with our human eyes. So don't worry too much. As long as it makes sense, it will get a mark. When a client create a file, should the file be in the same directory as the, yes. I think just put it at the same directory. But we can go through the specification. Let me just have a quick check. I think it does mention about like how can you store the file and what is the file name. Yes, as you can see in the UVF, like page 8, at the UVF function, you can see once you receive a file, you need to rename the file. So we do mention of how to name the file on the transmission. Yes, just put it in the same directory. For example, the UED command. You just create the file name with the ID. Yes, generally we will like copy and paste the client.py into different folder and run it. Yeah, but also try to run it in the same folder, and if it's working, that would be great. But you can mention this one in your report. Like you can say how to run your client is the best way. You can say we have to put it in different subfolder. That's okay. Or we can run it in the same folder. It will also work. Usually, the code will work from the same folder. Yeah, if you are worried about this, you can just post it on the forum. And I'm sure we will not be very mean in this point. But if we do, just send us an email of your post on the forum. You can say, I already asked this question and why I lose the mark. But if the client PY is copied and pasted to different directories, then how can the server identify which folder belongs to which client? So why should your server need to know where is the client? So usually you can consider the client from a remote computer. So you don't need to know what's the address or which folder is the client. And the server need to identify different clients while their username. So you do the authentication when they log in.
Hey Rui, is it okay if I share my
Yes,
screen so I can show you what I mean?
yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
easy. Okay. Yeah, so I originally just had everything in here in one
Yes.
file,
but
then I moved all the client stuff into here, right?
Yeah.
This is a data file,
Mhm.
and then everything, all the server files into here. But now the problem I'm having is when I try to, for example, do the computation, it's not, it can't locate the file because before it was all in the same.
Yeah, so I think this is because the code in your client side, right? You
Yeah.
have to. I remember you must have a open function for this
Yeah.
command, right? So
Yeah.
have a check of the path of the open function. I think you may specify what is the directory of this, but
And is that in the server side or the client side?
client side.
Oh, so I shouldn't be opening it in the server side.
So no matter the server side or client side, like just check every open function that you have. You may specify the path for that absolute path for your code, but you don't need to do that. Like for example, you specify it is in the folder Z5313015 public HTML and CS331 and something like that. You don't need to specify this much. You just specify the file name itself in the current
Yeah,
folder.
I think that's what I'm doing though.
Oh, but it is not working?
Yeah,
Oh,
because
you can try.
because I'm doing it, I'm opening it in the server side and I'm
Yes.
just specifying, for example,
Uh-huh.
the client name plus file name.
Yeah.
But then since the file is in here,
Uh-huh.
it can't find it because it's not all in the same one because I'm opening it in from the server side. So I'm trying to open this file from
Yes.
here.
Yeah, so don't you need to send from the client side to the server side first? So you need to store at the server side. So you don't need to check the folder.
Oh, okay. So when I send it to the when I do the UED,
Yes.
the server should make a copy or
Yes. So that's my opinion. So you need
yeah,
to
okay.
do the transfer.
And then I can only do the computation if the server has the file.
Yes.
Ah, that makes more sense. Okay, because I don't think the spec really was clear about whether I should make a copy in the server or not, or just upload it to the upload log or whatever.
Yeah. I see the UED command, right? It doesn't mention like do we need to store or something? But it says we need to upload. So just do the upload.
Okay, so that just means create another file.
Yes, just imagine the client is running in another computer. right?
Yeah.
So you cannot simply copy it. All you need to do is just send while the TCP connection.
Okay. All good. Sweet. All right. Thanks for that.
That's all good.
Am I still sharing?
Yes. Yeah, you close it. I can close it for you.
Oh yeah. Can you just close it? Cheers.
Okay, I closed.
Hi, Ray. May I continue with William's question?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Williams just asked, like the server, when the client sends a UED command, the server should copy the file sent by the client, right?
It's not copy, it's just receive. You already have the file at your server side, right?
Why should we have the file on the server side?
Otherwise, how can you do the computation? Yeah, on the server side.
No, I mean I'm talking UED command, right? So
UED, yeah.
yeah, so like you just said, we can only send byte string file type, byte string type, right? So
Byte type.
yeah, byte type, but the server should receive a byte type object, not a file object. So once the server has received the byte type object, how can the server transfer the file type object into how can the server transfer the byte type object to a file type object?
Yeah, so like I thought I have already explained it in week 5, like how to send a file or how to send a JSON stuff. So basically, let me draw it to make it easier to understand. So this is the server. This is the client. So they can only send the byte type between each other. So they can only send, let's say we are going to send hello between them. They can send hello, but they cannot send a string like this. They can only send a byte hello.
Yeah, so
right?
are you trying to say we on the client on the server side, you decode the byte type string?
Yes. So what happens if you want to how to send a hello via TCP or UDP is the same via the socket. So the first step is to transform the string hello to bytes.
And the server side, in the server side, the server will open a new file, the same, whose name is the same as the file sent by the client, and the server decode this message and write them into that file.
Yeah. So the message is hello. Then we need to decode it, encode it. Sorry. So we need to have the socket, the send. If you are using UDP, then it should be send to, and message address. And in here, we cannot send a string because we need to send the bytes. So we can encode it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the important point. We need to do the encode. Oh, so okay. So anyway, so do like this. Transform to bytes. Maybe I put it here, make it clear. message byte is like this. Then we send it. So that's the second step. Send it. So that's how to send a string. So how about we want to send a dictionary or a list? We need to convert a dictionary or the list. Like for example, you want to send list, dictionary maybe. Dictionary like name, right, and the password, and 1 2 3 1 2 3. Like this. If we want to send a dictionary like this, how do you do it? It's just the same idea, right? Just we have the step 0, transform the dictionary into string like. So how to do it? We can simply use JSON.dumps dict, and the dict. Let's say login details equal to this, and this is the login details, and transform the string to bytes at this point. We already have the login details, str, and then message. We already have this one, login detail. So this is byte equal to, so the same idea. So we just transform the dictionary or JSON-like message into the string, and from the string to byte, and from the byte to the client side or the server side, depends on what you need. And
Yeah.
so after we send it, we need to receive it, right? So what do we need? When the client or server receive it, it should be like data.socket.icv something,
And
and
decode the
and
message.
and the type of data should equal to what's that? Byte, right? It is byte.
Yeah.
Make sure you can just print it or test it. So we need to, in order to print it, you can just simply print the byte stuff, right? So it's you can still see it, but just transform. Maybe you need to transform the type of it. So just data.decode. So we need to transform the message.
To dictionary or string.
Transform the byte to str, right?
Yeah, and the server will open a new file and write the string to the file.
So thank you. Yeah, so for the dictionary, we just have one more step. So when receive it, then what do we need to do? We need to transform the byte to str, and then transform the str to dictionary. So it's the same idea. So which is, so in here, which is the string dot so let's say data dot decode, and in here is the data str dot, it's not dot, it's JSON dot loads. So the idea is the same.
I'm asking, so the client should send a file object via UED, right?
Yeah, so in your question, like how to send a file is quite similar. So send the file, you can refer to my coding here. Sorry about talking about how to send the object for too long, but I think it's quite irrelevant. But I think I have already showing here how to send the whole file. So this one is in the UDP, but the idea is the same. So you can see we open a file. Right, we open the file and then we write it. Oh, sorry, we send it. This one is the sender. So we open the file. For example, you have, but you don't have it in the client side because you just save the digits in the RAM. But I think if you firstly generated the file, you should have this file, right? Just send it like this.
So sorry, which screen are you sharing?
Oh, sorry, my bad. It's in here. So this one. Sender, where's the receiver? Receiver, sender. So left hand side sender, right hand side receiver. So just imagine the sender is your client. And once you issue the UED command, you should have the file already in the with the client side, right? You should have the file and you should know the file name. So you just open it with these parameters, read in byte, and then we just send it to the server side. And in the server side, you just receive it and save it, just like this part.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so it's quite similar, but this one is in UDP. So you may need to check the function in here. So you can see how did we send it? We use s.send to function, but in UDP, the function is send instead of send to. So just a small modification, but they are quite similar. But the idea is the same, right? So you just send a file, same code.
Oh, yeah. When the client is sent by UDP and when does the client send by TCP?
We have mentioned this one in specification. So basically
Oh,
everything
I
is
see.
in TCP, but except the P2P stuff. P2P, we need to do it in UDP.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
I'll try.
Okay, so let me check. If an invalid username is given, do we just proceed with comparing against credential or should we do something else? Yes, we just reject it, isn't it? Do we mention about create new user? I don't think we do have this part. Yeah, so in here, invalid username. Let me share this one. specification username. So if input a invalid username, a password, just do something like this. So, oh, you mentioned about the user not exist. Yeah, so let me check. Yeah, we doesn't mention about this part, isn't it? So if we don't have the thing in the specification, then it should be a corner case. Yeah, because we only mention about this one. Like if we have this username, then we test the password. We doesn't mention about if we don't have this username, what should we do? So let me just go quick look of the authentication. I do remember we didn't mention about it. Yeah, we doesn't mention about it. So maybe just show that we don't have this username, invalid username. Yeah, so I don't think we will test it. But it's just in case, you can say invalid username or password or something like that. Don't waste too much time on this corner case. Just show the corresponding error. Yeah, you can print there is no such a person. Yeah, that should be fine. And could you please explain code quality and comment? Yes, so we will go through this part next week. I think in my point of view, it's pretty easy to get this part. It's basically 3 points if you do the submission. So what we need to do, just have a quick look just before we leave. Just go to this table. So next week, we'll go through the reports, comments, yeah, and that's it, and do the submission. I will also have a quick look of other questions you have in next week. But next week, I will teach you how to do the report and the quality comments. It will not take a lot of time, but if you want to do it right now, for the document report, you just teach us what is the program of your submission. Like you can draw something of the structure of your code and tell us what is the like problem with your program if you have like if you have some weird bug that you cannot fix and you think we may test that part, you can mention that then and tell us like what kind of problem is that. So just in case we encounter that problem and we don't know how to handle it. Yeah, that's basically everything. So for the reports, just do the report. We will not be very mean to that part. Just mention how to run your code at first. So that's the most important part. Just teach us how to run your code. And the code quality. So basically, write some comments behind your code, just like this. Just like, so this is not good. Only 2 comments. But it doesn't mean you have to write the comment every line, because as we can see here, the whole part is pretty easy to understand. We don't need to do too much. But if you have any kind of function, like you define the function hello, something like that, then you can have a quick introduce how your function work. Like and like you can also see what kind of parameters do you have, and what is the output, or something like that. You can introduce what is the parameters, like hello name, like something like that. Just refer to the coding format of Python. Like just introduce what is this function, and what is the hello, what is the name of it, what is parameter's name, and what is the out. And you can also have some unit test, but it's not required. Just write some document like this. Let us know what is the output. For example, this one is returning the string, and you can also specify what is the type of the parameters in here. So that will be a like good function that we can easily understand what is your function. Like return hello name, something like this. This is an example function that how you do the comments. And you can see I can specify the type, make it easier to understand, and specify how do you use it, what is the parameters, and what is the output. Yeah, if you have time, you can write some unit test, but it's not required. So try to write comments for your function, and try to not have repeat code. Can I do notify other function? Just run in the run cell function at the server side. Will this be back code quality? As long as your code is working, I think it's okay. But yeah, it's better to have small function, isn't it? Like you can set this one is login. We have login function, and we have defined like UED, I don't know, function, and we have defined EPD function, something like that. So it will be easier to manage your program. But this one is not compulsory. But if you have time, try to do this. Or you can even have a class like command or something like that. Command handler. And you can have some small function behind this class. Yeah, so like if you know how to do it, just do it. If you don't, just save your time. Make sure everything is working. It's the first task. So don't struggling on this part. Just make sure the first part of the table of this table is working properly. So just make sure this part. It's here, right? Just do them one by one. Don't worry too much about the end of it. Basically, it's 3 marks. So make sure this part is working. The programming part is working properly. Yeah, so another thing to be mentioning here, if you have like some program like PyCharm for the document, for the code style, it will be very easy to do the formatting. like PyCharm formatting. Let me find the images. Like this one. Like so some of the IDE, they have this kind of function that can easily help you to reformat your code. Just like in this video, they can just type one of the command and make everything looks better. You can see that they changed the indent and the format of the quotation, but that's not a big deal. There are lots of ways to do it, and try to follow the PEP8 if you have time for the formatting. PEP8 style guide. But yeah, just as I mentioned before, just make every function is working first and do this one. And yeah, thanks for coming today. And we will have a help session tomorrow. So if you have any question, just come here tomorrow at the same time. Start from 2 p.m. Yeah, I will do the uploading at the end of the day. Yeah, just try to do like implement your code today. So if you have any further question, just come to the help session tomorrow. Because this is basically the last week. So try to do as much as you can, and I will see you next time. Okay, see you.